It's Jon Justice, and thanks for checking out another episode. Bonus content apart from my weekly Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. Central Time on the Iheartradio app, KTLK, AM 1130 and 103.5 FM in Minneapolis. You can, of course, check it out on the podcast on the Iheartradio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever platform that you use. Earlier this week, it was reported that Governor Tim Walz, or as I like to call him, Tim Jean Walz, would be addressing the DNC in the wake of massive layoffs after the failure of the Harris and Walz campaign. That's kind of funny. Walz has not done any extensive interviews here since his return to governor in the state of Minnesota. Then reports came out that the internal polling numbers for Kamala Harris after the coup that booted Joe Biden off of the top of the ticket, this was, of course, in the wake of that disastrous debate against Donald Trump on June 27th. Kamala Harris and her internal polling numbers never showed that she was going to win. They knew that she was going to lose all along, and yet they spent over $1 billion trying to shore up support for this campaign, telling their supporters otherwise, that they were going to be able to beat Donald Trump, when again, there was no indication whatsoever that they were going to, and it makes all the sense in the world. Was an absolutely horrible candidate. She was when she ran for the nomination to be the president. She was, as VP, a horrible VP. If everybody remembers, there were articles written about where's Kamala in the first few years of her serving as VP, and then other articles about whether or not she should be replaced on Joe Biden's ticket as he was running against Donald Trump. And of course, we all know what happened and the massive election victory for Donald Trump. For those on the left that continue to go and get upset at MAGA and Trump supporters, they need to go and look at their own party. As I've said since Trump's victory, this anger is so completely and utterly misplaced. Get mad at your own party and then come and join us over here on the light side. We're more than happy to have you. Unlike those on the left that just always outright reject anybody on the right whatsoever, conservatives and Republicans, no man, we'll welcome you into our party. We're having a great time over here with all the winning. So in the wake of all this news, and I don't know if this was a part of Tim Walz addressing the DNC in the wake of these massive layoffs, the union was incredibly upset, right? Finding out about what I just mentioned to you, the fact that Kamala Harris and her internal polling numbers, and this is not coming from a conservative source. Again, they told the Huffington Post this, that they were never going to win. I'm online, and suddenly these clips of Kamala Harris pop up. Really kind of bizarre clips. A lot of people pointing out that she's acting like she's drunk in these clips, and honestly, she kind of always acts this way, which begs the question, does she just always act like she's drunk, or is she actually drunk? Doesn't matter. She lost the election. Here is the first clip that started coming out. The first time that she's spoken in a long time since her concession. Actually, I think it might be the first time they've made a public statement since her concession speech. Check this out.
I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you. You have the same power that you did before November 5th. And you have the same purpose that you did. And you have the same ability to engage and inspire. So don't ever let anybody or any circumstance take your power from you.
What does any of this mean? To say it's a word salad, it doesn't even do it justice in terms of just how vapid and shallow the commentary is. Well, it turns out that this was actually a 10-minute, 15-minute Zoom call that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz did, and they were taking questions from those in this Zoom meeting. And I have to believe that this is part of the address that I mentioned earlier that was announced earlier this week. So here is a clip from Tim Walz. And again, I don't think that we've heard Tim Jean Walz talk about the election and his thoughts since they lost extensively yet, but here's a quick 15 seconds.
Every place we went, the caring and the sense of joy. I know it's incredibly disappointing now, and look, candidly, it's a bit scary because there's a very different vision that's being put out there. But now
it's only scary from the viewpoint of Governor Tim Jong Walz because it showed how little their narratives stuck, how bad their ideologies are. They don't genuinely care about their constituents. They don't genuinely care about the voters. It's scary to Tim Walz because his belief, his far leftist, Marxist, Maoist beliefs didn't carry him through to victory. They were rejected by the American public. That is frightening to him because it means the foundation that he stands upon is not firm by any stretch. It's not scary from the standpoint of his voters and constituents and the threats of democracy. Those are just ridiculous, shallow claims that have no validity or support behind them whatsoever. Here's a little bit more of Kamala Harris during this Zoom meeting.
And it means so much to me and to Governor Walz that you knocked on doors, you called friends, you called in favors. You said, hey, I showed up at your softball game. Now I need you to show up at the campaign office. You put in the time. It was personal for you. Because of your efforts, get this, we raised an historic $1.4 billion, almost $1.5 billion. The work must continue of reminding ourselves that we have an ability to stay engaged in a way that will make a difference. The work that you all did, it's going to have lasting effect. The election didn't turn out like we wanted it to. Certainly not as we planned for it to. And I know this is an uncertain time. I'm clear-eyed about that. I know you're clear-eyed about it. And it feels heavy. And I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you. You have the same power that you did before November 5th. And on this practical eve of Thanksgiving, I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving with the ability and to find the ability at this moment to take a moment and just reflect on all the good you have done.
She's right on some things and really wrong on other things. And the things that she's right about, again, just like Walz and him being afraid that they were rejected, right? She's right in the wrong ways. When she talks about you have the same power that you have on November 5th, first off, she doesn't even realize what she's saying. Apparently, that's not a whole lot of power because they lost. So, yeah, I guess they have the same power that they had on November 5th in as much as they have very little power whatsoever. And no, the work that they did isn't going to carry over. It isn't long-lasting because there wasn't anything of substance during their campaign. That $1.4 billion was $1.4 billion in a pro-Trump advertisement expenditure. The more money that they spent, the more that Kamala Harris spoke to different outlets, explicit podcasts, call her daddy, media outlets, tossing out the word salads, the more that she was shown, the more that Tim Walz gallivanted ridiculously up on stage, the more that they attempted to cast him as the quintessential form of masculinity. I mean, talk about just being completely off base. The more support that Donald Trump got. That was $1.4 billion that they spent to get Trump elected. They would have been better off running a basement campaign the same way that Joe Biden did during COVID. They just didn't have the excuse. And they thought that the media was going to be able to carry the water and that campaign to victory. But even at the end, they were getting off of the bandwagon. They saw what was coming. What an absolutely, completely ridiculous scam that was pulled over by the Democrat Party. And good. I'm glad that that happened. I'm glad that the country decided to reject that far leftist ideology. I'm glad that we're returning to at least some common sense, rational policy moving forward, trying new ideas and bringing in new people. We actually have ideas over here. The only idea that they had was to try to fearmonger everybody into believing that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance were a threat to democracy, and people just simply didn't buy it. I don't know what the point of that Zoom meeting was. It could, again, just be as simple as they're trying to continue to shore up support for the union, the DNC, who's really upset over their loss because they were convinced that they were going to win. It seemed like a horrible move, but it doesn't matter at this point in time. They lost. Kamala Harris has no political future, despite some of the commentary surrounding how she needs to keep her political options open. No, she needs to step out of the political limelight and maybe get a job commentating or, perhaps being an endorser for a far left-wing whiskey brand. That might be her best bet moving forward. Be thankful you don't live here in the state of Minnesota. We got to still deal with Tim John Walz for a couple of years, and we have really yet to see what kind of impact that's going to have here on Minnesota because, like I said, he hasn't talked to local media extensively, so I don't really know where his head at right now. He is an incredibly vindictive individual, but he lost his trifecta of power here in the state of Minnesota, and we have a divided government once again, and he's a chameleon. He bends with whichever way the political winds are shifting, but he's not going to be able to get his far radical left-wing agenda done the way he did over the course of the past few years, having all the power here in the state of Minnesota. As we head into Thanksgiving, if I can go and steal that from Kamala Harris, man, be thankful that Trump won this election. Be thankful that the country rejected the garbage that they were peddling. Be thankful that we still live in a sane and rational country and that we can still go and let our voices be heard in a fair way at the ballot box. Because, of course, there was a ton of concern about that as well. So just be thankful for your friends and your family. We live in the greatest country on the planet. And back on November 5th, that was proven once again. And be thankful for next year. I'm excited for Donald Trump to get back into office. I'm excited for him to make America great again because the staff that he's put around him, his cabinet and his administration, in my opinion, has shown that he's learned a lot of lessons from the first time that he was in office, that he intends to go and use that knowledge in his second term in office. This is the last gasp of Kamala Harris right now. And she continues to display why the country flatly rejected her. And again, why her own campaign knew that she was never going to win. Hey, if you're a Democrat, come on over to our side. We're having a lot of fun winning over here. Follow in the footsteps of RFK Jr. Regardless of your views on fluoride in the water. Follow in the footsteps of Elon Musk. Regardless of your thoughts of what he's done to X. Follow in the footsteps of Tulsi Gabbard. Shove away all the ridiculous claims of her being a Russian asset. We're having a great time over here, and we welcome you with open arms. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic Thanksgiving. God bless. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and the podcast, whatever podcast platform that you are listening to the show on. And remember to check out my show Monday through Friday, 6 until 9 a.m. on the Iheartradio app. That's Central Time, and I'm back live coming up on Monday, December 2nd, right? All right. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk to you real soon. Bye.